The endless void stretched around the exploration vessel Ardent Dawn. Stars shimmered like cold diamonds scattered across black velvet. The hum of the engines was steady, constant, and familiar, but the silence of space was always pressing against the hull. For the crew, silence meant safety. Noise meant trouble. Lieutenant Marcus Hale leaned against the viewing glass, his arms folded across his chest. He was a tall man with sharp eyes, a face weathered by long missions and a posture that spoke of confidence. Yet his thoughts were restless. Humanity had only stepped into interstellar travel a few decades ago. Compared to the old and powerful empires out there, they were children, fragile and inexperienced. Still, humans had something those empires underestimated: boldness. "Lieutenant Hale," came the captain's voice through the comm. "We've picked up something unusual. Report to the bridge." Marcus turned from the glass and strode down the metal corridors. The ship's crew was small, only 40 people, but each step echoed as if reminding him of the vast emptiness outside. When he entered the bridge, the air was tense. Captain Alara, a seasoned explorer with silver-streaked hair, stood at the command seat, her eyes locked on the main display. "What is it?" Marcus asked. The screen revealed a massive silhouette drifting among the stars. It was a ship, but not human. Its design was elegant yet scarred, its hull cracked as if it had survived a great battle. Energy signatures were weak, almost gone. "A derelict," the captain said softly, "but not just any. Look at the markings." Marcus squinted at the strange symbols carved into the plating. They were foreign, sharp and curved like flowing calligraphy. Recognition stirred in his mind. He had seen these symbols in intelligence briefings. "Oravon," Marcus whispered, "one of the Dominion ships." The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Oravon Dominion was known as one of the most powerful alien empires, centuries ahead in technology, and feared for their strict hierarchy. To humans, they were untouchable giants, and crossing paths with them often ended badly. Captain Alara nodded. "Exactly. But this one is silent. No life signs except..." She tapped a control. A faint reading pulsed on the screen. "One stasis pod still active." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "One survivor?" "Possibly," Alara replied. "We can't ignore it. We'll send a boarding team. You're leading?" Marcus did not argue. He felt the weight of the moment. This was no ordinary wreck. To find a living Oravan aboard meant danger, but also opportunity. Minutes later, the boarding shuttle detached from the Ardent Dawn and drifted toward the alien warship. The cracked hull loomed larger with every second, its once mighty form now a broken shell. Marcus and his team, clad in exploration suits, moved through the docking hatch that sealed against the alien ship. Inside was a graveyard. The corridors were dim, lit only by the flickering glow of failing power systems. Panels hung loose and scorched marks told stories of violence. The silence was heavy, disturbed only by the hiss of their breathing units. "Stay sharp," Marcus ordered. His voice carried through their helmets. "We don't know what caused this." The team advanced deeper until they reached a chamber at the heart of the ship. There, standing in the center, was a stasis pod glowing faint blue. Frost clung to its surface, and inside was the faint outline of a figure. Marcus stepped closer. The figure was tall, slender, clad in ornate armor unlike anything human design had ever created. The helmet hid the face, but even through the layer of frost, the being's form radiated grace and authority. "Status?" Marcus asked the medic. The medic scanned the pod. "Alive, vital signs weak but stable. Whoever this is, they've been in stasis for a long time." The pod suddenly hissed. Warning lights blinked across the alien console, reacting to the human presence. The chamber vibrated and the stasis pod began its awakening sequence. "Sir?" the medic asked nervously. "Stand back," Marcus said, though his feet remained planted. He couldn't look away. Something told him this moment was important. History was being written. The frost cleared slowly. The armor's details gleamed faintly, golden lines flowing across dark material, a design both beautiful and alien. With a soft click, the helmet seal released. The pod opened with a rush of air, and the figure stepped forward. The being moved with elegance, her boots tapping against the metal floor softly. Then, with deliberate hands, she reached up and removed her helmet. Marcus held his breath. The face revealed was unlike any he had expected. Her features were refined, luminous skin glowing faintly in the low light. Her eyes were large, bright as twin stars, holding a depth that felt both ancient and young. Her hair, long and silver, shimmered as if woven from threads of starlight. She was alien, yet so achingly close to human it startled him. For a heartbeat, the world stood still. And then, without meaning to, Marcus whispered, almost too quietly for anyone else to hear, "Gorgeous." The word slipped out, unplanned, unguarded. His team turned their heads sharply toward him, shocked at the comment. But it was the alien princess who reacted most. Her eyes widened, confusion flickering across her regal face. She tilted her head slightly as if tasting the word he had spoken. Her lips moved and her voice flowed into the air. It was melodic, layered, almost like a song. The words were not in English, yet something in her tone carried meaning. "She's speaking," the linguist on the team muttered, quickly activating translation software. The translation came through broken but understandable. "Where am I? Who are you?" Marcus straightened, forcing calm into his voice. "I am Lieutenant Marcus Hale of the human vessel Ardent Dawn. You are safe, for now." The princess blinked, her gaze scanning the humans around her. There was no fear in her eyes, only sharp calculation, like a ruler assessing new subjects. Yet when her gaze returned to Marcus, there was something else. Curiosity. "Humans," she whispered, her voice still carrying that strange melody. "So young, so reckless," Marcus smirked faintly. "You're not wrong." The princess tilted her head again, studying him. She seemed puzzled by his lack of deference. Among her people, royalty was worshipped. But here this human spoke to her as though she were simply another traveler. For a moment, silence stretched between them. The crew shifted uncomfortably, unsure what to do. Then the princess stepped closer. Every motion she made was controlled, powerful, as though she carried centuries of heritage in her stride. She stood before Marcus, close enough that he could see the faint shimmer of her eyes like stars reflected on water. "You," she said slowly, through the translator. "You did not kneel." Marcus met her gaze without hesitation. "I don't kneel." The princess's expression softened with something like amusement or maybe respect. She studied him a moment longer before finally saying, "Then perhaps humans are not as simple as I was taught." The team exchanged glances, realizing the weight of her words. She was no ordinary survivor. Whoever she was, her presence carried significance far beyond this wrecked ship. Marcus knew it too. His whisper, his boldness, and this strange connection, they had just opened a door neither species could easily close. And deep in his gut, Marcus felt it. This was only the beginning. The chamber inside the alien ship felt colder after the princess stepped out of her pod. Her presence was commanding, yet not threatening. The crew of the Ardent Dawn shifted uneasily, unsure of how to handle the situation. They had trained for encounters with alien species, but not for this. An alien princess standing face to face with them, awake from a long sleep, with eyes that seemed to pierce their very thoughts. Captain Alara's voice broke the silence over the comm. "Lieutenant Hale, report." Marcus pressed a finger to his helmet. "We found her. She's alive, stable, and, well, awake." He glanced at the princess, whose gaze had not left him. "And she's not exactly ordinary." The captain's voice carried both concern and curiosity. "Bring her aboard carefully. No sudden moves. We don't know what we're dealing with." The princess tilted her head slightly. "Your commander speaks through the air." "Interesting." Her words were filtered by the translator, but even so, her voice sounded like flowing water. Marcus gestured toward the path back to the shuttle. "Come with us. We'll take you somewhere safer than this wreck." Her bright eyes narrowed slightly. "You dare to command me?" The humans tensed, but Marcus didn't flinch. "Not a command. A request. If you stay here, your ship will not protect you. Ours can." For a long moment she studied him. Then, with a graceful motion, she slid her helmet back under her arm and nodded. "Very well. I will walk with you, human." The journey back through the broken ship was quiet, filled only with the hum of their suits. The humans walked cautiously while the princess moved with calm elegance, as though the destruction around her was beneath her notice. When they boarded the shuttle, the princess paused, running her hand across the interior wall. "So crude," she murmured. "Yet functional. Humans build with purpose, not with pride." Marcus smirked. "You noticed." The shuttle detached from the derelict and flew toward the Ardent Dawn. The massive alien ship grew smaller behind them, a broken monument adrift in the stars. As the shuttle docked, the crew guided the princess into the human vessel. The interior was plain gray and efficient, nothing like the ornate armor she wore. Her silver hair caught the light as she walked, drawing every eye on the deck. Whispers spread among the crew. She looks almost human. She's royalty. She could be dangerous. Captain Alara met them in the docking bay. She was calm, though her sharp eyes studied the princess carefully. "Welcome aboard the Ardent Dawn," she said firmly. The princess straightened, lifting her chin. "I am Solara of the Orivean Dominion, daughter of the late Empress Lyriel, heir to the throne that no longer shines." The crew exchanged glances. An heir to an empire? This was far more serious than they expected. Marcus crossed his arms. "Solara, you said your throne no longer shines. What happened?" Her bright eyes dimmed for a moment. "War. Betrayal. My people fight among themselves. The regent, my uncle, seeks to claim the throne through fear. My ship was attacked as I fled to find loyal allies. Now," she looked down at her armored hands, "now I awaken to find strangers at my side." Captain Alara nodded slowly. "Then you are our guest, Princess Solara. We'll offer food, shelter, and protection, for as long as circumstances allow." Solara's gaze flicked toward Marcus again, her expression unreadable. "And what do humans seek in return?" Ilara answered before Marcus could. "Understanding, knowledge, peace if possible. We don't wish for conflict." Solara's lips curved slightly, though not into a full smile. Peace, a word often spoken, rarely kept. Hours passed and Solara was given quarters aboard the ship. They were simple, with a bed, a table, and soft lights. She sat silently for a long time, observing the plain walls as if trying to understand humanity through its design. Marcus visited later, bringing a tray of food. He set it down carefully. "It's simple human food. Nothing special, but it will keep you strong." Solara studied the tray. "Grain, protein, vegetables, efficient. You humans do not waste," he chuckled. "We don't always have the luxury to waste." Her silver eyes fixed on him. "You are bold, Marcus Hale. You do not bow, you do not tremble, and you speak as if I am your equal. Do you not fear me?" Marcus leaned against the wall casually. "Should I?" "In the Dominion," she said softly, "men would kneel in my presence. Soldiers would lower their weapons. Even my enemies would hesitate." "And did that keep them from betraying you?" Marcus asked. The question struck her like a sudden blow. She blinked, surprised by the sharpness of his words. Slowly her expression softened and she leaned back against the chair. Perhaps not. For a while silence filled the room. The hum of the ship was the only sound. At last Solara spoke again. "Humans are different. You laugh even when danger is near. You fight for one another, not for empire. You look at me, an heir to a throne, and you see not royalty but a person." She hesitated as though the thought unsettled her. "This is not weakness. This is something else," Marcus shrugged. "It's just who we are." Later in the command room, Captain Alara reviewed the situation with her officers. The princess's presence was both a gift and a threat. If the Dominion learned humans had their heir, war could follow. But at the same time, Solara represented a bridge, an opportunity to show the galaxy what humanity could offer. "She's not like the reports," Marcus said firmly. "She's proud, but she's listening. She's curious about us." Ilara gave him a sharp look. "Be careful, Lieutenant. Curiosity doesn't mean trust. Keep your guard up. She is still Orivean." Marcus nodded, though part of him wondered. He had seen something in her eyes. A flicker of respect, perhaps even admiration. Meanwhile, Solara stood at the observation deck, gazing at the stars. To her, the constellations were familiar yet distant. Somewhere out there, her people tore each other apart. Somewhere out there, her uncle hunted her. And here she stood among humans, a species young and untested, yet bold enough to defy the stars themselves. She whispered softly to herself, "Perhaps destiny is stranger than I believed." Marcus entered quietly, joining her at the glass. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" Solara glanced at him. "The stars have always been beautiful. It is the people beneath them who bring darkness." He smirked faintly. "That's true, but people can also bring light." She studied him, her expression unreadable. "Tell me, Marcus Hale, do humans believe they can change the fate of others?" He nodded without hesitation. "We don't just believe it, we live it. Every step into the unknown, every risk we take, that's us saying fate doesn't own us." Her lips curved again, just slightly. Reckless, foolish, and yet... She looked back at the stars. Perhaps. Admirable. Unseen by both, sensors on the ardent dawn picked up faint signals in the distance. Ships fast and searching were on the move. The Dominion was hunting, and they were getting closer. The ardent dawn sailed quietly through the dark sea of space. Its engines hummed and its crew carried on their duties as if nothing had changed. Yet everything had changed. An alien princess now walked its halls, and though her steps were light, the weight of her presence was heavy. Marcus Hale sat at the edge of the command table, watching the star maps flicker with distant signals. He leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. The faint blips were there again. Movement in the darkness. Ships too distant to identify, yet too focused to be chance. "They're tracking us," he said firmly. Captain Alara nodded grimly. "I see it. No ordinary patrol would be moving in such a pattern." Her eyes shifted toward Solara, who stood quietly behind them. "Your uncle's hunters, I assume?" Solara's expression was unreadable, but her silver eyes held a shadow of truth. "Yes. The Regent will not rest until I am returned to him or destroyed. He knows what I am worth." The crew glanced at her nervously. She spoke of her own life as if it were just another strategy piece in a grand game. Marcus crossed his arms. "And what do you think you're worth?" Her gaze snapped toward him. For a heartbeat, silence stretched. Then she said softly, "More than a throne, perhaps. Or less. Time will decide." The next hours were tense. The signals grew stronger. Whoever followed them was closing the gap. Marcus prepared the defense teams, checking weapons, reinforcing bulkheads, and ensuring escape pods were ready. Humanity's ships were not as advanced as the Dominion's. If battle came, they would fight against odds far beyond their measure. Solara moved among the humans as they prepared. She watched with sharp curiosity as they worked shoulder to shoulder, laughing even under tension. A mechanic dropped a tool, and another caught it midair with a grin. "We'll need that later, don't lose it," the mechanic teased. The princess frowned slightly. "You find humor when danger is near," Marcus answered as he adjusted a plasma rifle. "If we stop laughing, we start fearing, and fear makes mistakes. We can't afford mistakes." She tilted her head, her silver hair gleaming in the dim lights. "Strange creatures, humans. You mock death, yet cling fiercely to life. No Oravean would behave so." Marcus met her gaze. "Maybe that's why we're still here, even in a galaxy full of stronger species." The warning klaxons blared. "All hands prepare." Captain Alara's voice cut through the ship. "Incoming vessel. Dominion warship." On the main screen, the sleek shape of an Oravean cruiser emerged from the darkness. Its hull gleamed with pale light. Its design, sharp and elegant, its weapon systems glowing faintly like the eyes of a predator. "They found us," Marcus muttered. The comm crackled and a voice filled the bridge, smooth, commanding, dripping with disdain. "Human vessel, you hold what belongs to the Dominion. Release the air, or be destroyed." The crew stiffened. Marcus looked at Solara. She stood tall, her expression calm, though her hands tightened slightly at her sides. The captain's voice was steady. "This is Captain Alara of the human ship Ardent Dawn. The individual aboard is here of her own will. We will not hand her over." A low laugh echoed from the comm. "Humans. Brave words from insects. Your ship is weak. You cannot resist us." The transmission cut, and weapons on the Oravan cruiser charged. The first strike hit like thunder. Energy beams slammed into the Ardent Dawn's shields, rattling the vessel. Panels sparked, alarms screamed, and the crew rushed to stations. "Shields at 60%, shouted the technician. "Return fire," Alara commanded. The human ship's weapons lit up, but compared to the alien cruiser, their shots were pebbles against steel. Explosions rippled across the enemy's shields, but the warship advanced unharmed. Marcus gritted his teeth. "They're testing us. They want to scare us before they finish it." Solara stood behind him, her voice clear. "You cannot win this battle." Marcus turned sharply. "Maybe not, but we can make them bleed." Her eyes widened slightly at his words. He was not boasting. He was stating it as fact, like a soldier who had made peace with the odds. The battle raged. The Auravian cruiser unleashed barrage after barrage, and the Ardent Dawn danced desperately, maneuvering through the storm. Marcus led a fire team to seal damaged corridors, pulling a crewman from a collapsing bulkhead with raw strength. Solara followed him, against orders. She moved with surprising speed, helping to steady a wounded medic. "Stay back," Marcus barked. "This isn't your fight." Her voice was sharp. "It is my fight. They hunt me, not your people. Yet you risk everything for me." "Why?" Marcus shoved a panel into place and locked it down before answering. His voice was rough with strain. "Because you're here. Because leaving someone behind isn't what we do." Her eyes softened. "Not for empire. Not for throne. For one life. That's what makes us human." The cruiser struck again, and this time the blow tore open a section of the Ardent Dawn's outer hull. Air vented violently, dragging everything toward the void. Marcus saw Solara stumble near the breach. Without hesitation, he threw himself toward her, grabbing her arm as the pull of the vacuum dragged them both. His tether line snapped taut, holding them to the ship. For a moment they dangled against the roaring pull of space. Stars glittered in the darkness beyond, cold and endless. Solara's silver hair whipped around her face as she stared at Marcus, wide-eyed. He gritted his teeth, hauling her back with every ounce of strength. "Hold on!" With a final pull, they slammed back against the deck as emergency shutters sealed the breach. The air pressure stabilized, and silence returned, heavy and sharp. Solara lay against the floor, breathing hard. She looked up at Marcus, who was still holding her arm tightly. His chest rose and fell, his face streaked with sweat. "You risked your life for me," she whispered. He let out a rough laugh. "Of course I did. What else was I supposed to do?" For the first time, her lips curved into something close to a true smile. Not mockery, not calculation, but real warmth. Back on the bridge, the battle still raged. The Ardent Dawn was battered, shields failing, weapons overheating. The Auravian cruiser circled like a predator, preparing to strike the final blow. Captain Alara's voice was steady, but her eyes were grim. "We can't hold much longer." Marcus returned to the command deck, Solara beside him. She placed her hand on the console, her expression firm. "There is one chance," she said. "I know the patterns of Dominion ships. Their weapons cycle has a flaw, small but real. If you time your fire with precision, you may cripple their targeting array." Ilara glanced at Marcus. He nodded. "We trust her." The captain's jaw tightened, but she gave the order. "All weapons on my mark. Ready?" The ship shook as the Auravan fired again. The crew held their breath. Solara's eyes burned with intensity as she whispered, "Now." Ilara gave the signal. The Ardent Dawn's cannons roared, striking in perfect rhythm. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the Auravan cruiser shuddered, one of its arrays exploding in sparks. Cheers erupted across the bridge. They had hurt the Predator, but the victory was short. The enemy ship still loomed, damaged but furious. And now its commander would not underestimate them again. Marcus looked at Solara. Her gaze was steady, but he saw the flicker of worry in her eyes. "They won't stop," he said quietly. "No," she replied. "They will hunt us until either you are gone, or I am." Outside, the stars glittered coldly, as if watching silently. The fight was far from over. The battle had left the Ardent Dawn battered, its hull scarred and its crew exhausted. Yet there was no time to rest. Marcus Hale paced the command deck, his jaw tight, his mind racing. The Auravan cruiser, though damaged, had vanished into the dark of space. That only meant it was planning its next move. Solara stood near the viewport, her silver hair catching the dim lights of the ship. Her expression was thoughtful, her posture rigid, yet she did not speak. Marcus watched her, sensing a tension beneath her calm exterior. She had faced betrayals worse than any human could imagine, and yet somehow, she seemed to trust them. "Marcus," she said finally, her voice soft but firm, "I fear my uncle will not relent. The Dominion does not forgive. It does not forget." Marcus nodded. "Then we prepare." We fight smarter, not just harder. Captain Alara entered, her presence commanding even in exhaustion. The enemy will return, and likely with reinforcements. We must anticipate their strategy. Solara, do you know where they will strike? Solara's eyes flicked toward the star map. Yes. There is a station in this sector, Oravan Patrol Base Theta. They will regroup there and wait for the opportunity to corner us. If we move carefully, we can strike before they are ready. Marcus frowned. And what if they capture you before that? Her gaze hardened. Then you will see what humans call courage. I will not be taken without a fight. For hours, the crew worked to repair the ship. Marcus led a small team through the maintenance corridors, welding panels, checking power conduits, and reinforcing bulkheads. Solara followed closely, helping where she could. Her strength and agility surprised them all. She moved like a predator, precise and quick, yet disciplined. You fight well, Marcus said, handing her a tool to secure a loose panel. She looked at him with a faint smile. I am trained. But your people, you survive through unpredictability. That is admirable, he chuckled. We call it human stubbornness. You may call it that, she said softly, but it is something more. I see it in your eyes. You will not yield, even when the stars themselves seem against you. Marcus felt a warmth at her words, but there was no time for sentiment. The warning klaxon sounded again. Sensors detected multiple contacts approaching fast. They're coming back, Marcus said. And they brought friends. The Oravan fleet arrived suddenly, dark shapes filling the void. The ardent dawn shuddered as the first salvo struck. Human shields held, but just barely. Fire lit the corridor walls, alarms screamed, and chaos erupted across the ship. All hands, battle stations, Captain Alara commanded. Marcus took position near the weapons console, guiding fire teams to weak points in the enemy formation. Solara stayed beside him, her hands hovering over controls she had never used before, instinctively understanding timing and sequence. You learn quickly, Marcus said as she assisted in calibrating the weapons. Her silver eyes met his. I have had centuries to observe strategy, Marcus Hale. Your people adapt, but you do not wait. That is remarkable. The ardent dawn retaliated with precision. Missiles struck the lead Oravan ship, disabling a wing of its weapons. Energy beams streaked through space, lighting the darkness with flashes of deadly beauty. Yet the Dominion fleet did not falter. They pressed forward relentlessly, their eyes on the prize, the princess. During the chaos, an alert sounded from the rear deck. A boarding party from the Oravan fleet had transported onto the human ship. Marcus grabbed his rifle and ran toward the corridor. Solara followed, moving faster than any human could match. Together, they intercepted the intruders. Marcus's team fired with controlled precision, and Solara struck with speed and power that stunned both friend and foe. She moved like a storm, her silver hair flowing as she disarmed opponents with swift, practiced movements. Marcus covered her flank, his weapon steady, his mind focused. For every strike she landed, she whispered something softly in her native tongue, perhaps a word of command or encouragement. The boarding party faltered. Humans fought not just for victory, but for loyalty, for the life of the princess they had vowed to protect. Yet victory was short-lived. The Dominion leader, a tall Oravan officer with armor black as void, appeared in the corridor. He moved with terrifying grace, his eyes locked on Solara. Princess, he said, voice cold and commanding. You will come with me. Resistance is meaningless, Solara's gaze hardened. You will not command me, uncle. Marcus stepped forward, weapon raised. She's not going anywhere with you. The officer's laugh was sharp. Humans, brave, foolish, and weak. You cannot protect her. The fight was swift and brutal. The officer moved like a whirlwind, his strikes precise. Marcus struggled to keep up, while Solara dodged, parried, and struck back with the skill of someone who had trained their whole life for this moment. But even combined, they were outnumbered and outmatched. A single misstep and the officer struck Solara, sending her sprawling across the floor. Solara, Marcus yelled, rushing to her side. The officer grabbed her arm, attempting to drag her toward a transport device. The regent will be pleased, he said. Time seemed to slow. Marcus lunged, tackling the officer, and the two crashed into the wall. Sparks flew. The princess struggled to her feet, her determination burning bright. You underestimate me, she hissed, eyes blazing. With a sudden burst of strength, she broke free from the officer's grip, knocking him back with a blow that sent him staggering. Marcus helped her to her feet. Are you okay? She nodded, her expression fierce. I am fine. But this is not over. The Dominion officer retreated, leaving behind an echo of threats. Solara turned to Marcus. They will come again, and next time they will not hesitate to destroy your ship to take me. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we'll be ready. We fight, we survive, and we show them that humans don't give up. Her silver eyes softened slightly. Your people are not like any I have known. You risk everything for one another. For me, you teach me courage. Courage that is reckless but true. Marcus smiled faintly. That's humanity. Hours later, the ship quieted, but the tension remained. Solara stood near the observation deck, staring out at the distant stars. Marcus joined her, his expression thoughtful. They will hunt you, Solara, he said softly, until you are back in your world, until your uncle is stopped, until... I don't know. Solara's gaze met his. I know, and yet... I have seen humans face death and fear it not. You do not follow rules. You follow spirit. That is why you survive, Marcus shrugged. We have to. Otherwise we wouldn't be here talking instead of floating in space. A quiet smile tugged at Solara's lips. Perhaps that is why I trust you. Marcus's heart skipped, though he kept his expression calm. Trust from a princess, a being trained all her life to expect betrayal, was a rare gift. Yet neither could ignore the looming threat. They both knew the Dominion would not rest. They would come again, stronger, faster, and with more deadly intent. Solara turned her gaze to the stars. We must strike first. We must show them that I am not simply an heir to be taken, but a ruler who chooses her own path. Marcus nodded. Then we plan, and when the time comes, we fight. The ardent dawn sailed on through the endless void, battered but unbroken, carrying both a princess and a crew who would prove that humans were more than they seemed. Somewhere out there, the stars watched silently, waiting for the next battle. The ardent dawn glided through the darkness, its hull scarred from previous battles, but its spirit unbroken. The crew moved with quiet determination, preparing for the decisive moment. The Dominion fleet had regrouped at Station Theta, unaware that humans were already moving to confront them. Marcus Hale stood on the command deck, watching the star maps with focused eyes. Solara, the Oravan princess, stood beside him, her silver hair catching the dim lights of the ship. She had changed since her awakening. The fear in her eyes had been replaced by resolve. This is it, Marcus said quietly. We either end this now or risk being hunted forever. Solara nodded. I am ready, but the Regent, he is cunning. You must be careful. Marcus smiled faintly. Careful is our middle name, sort of. She gave a small, almost imperceptible smile, the first real one he had seen. The approach to Station Theta was tense. The Dominion fleet was larger than expected, ships forming a menacing barrier around the station. Marcus and Ilara coordinated, human tactics with precision, exploiting every weakness Solara had pointed out in their training and planning. Solara herself worked with the crew, guiding missile launches, shields, and maneuvers. Though she had been raised among rulers and soldiers, her understanding of strategy, combined with her knowledge of her people's flaws, gave the humans an advantage. We hit them fast, disable their communications first, Solara instructed. Then we move in close. You will need courage, humans, and I will need trust. Marcus met her gaze. You have both. Let's make it count. The attack began with blinding intensity. Human ships darted between the larger Dominion vessels, their smaller size making them harder targets. Marcus fired commands through the bridge, coordinating teams who moved with practiced efficiency, their courage giving them strength beyond what technology alone could provide. Solara directed their fire, calling out weaknesses in the enemy formation. Her calm, precise voice inspired the crew. She struck a balance between command and collaboration, teaching humans and leading at the same time. Explosions rocked the void as the first wave of Dominion ships fell. Shields collapsed, engines flared, and communication arrays went dark. Yet at the center the Regent's flagship loomed, enormous and gleaming with menace. We face him last, Solara said firmly. If he falls first, the rest will scatter. Marcus tightened his grip on the console. Then let's finish this. Inside the Regent's flagship, the Oravan officer who had previously tried to capture Solara awaited. He had reinforced the Regent's personal defenses, confident that humans could not breach the vessel. But as the Ardent Dawn launched boarding pods, the humans and Solara moved with unexpected speed and coordination. Solara led the boarding team, her movements fluid and deadly. She disarmed guards with swift precision, her silver hair flowing like a banner of defiance. Marcus followed closely, protecting her flank and directing human team members to take positions. "You fight like your species is fearless," Solara said as she dispatched another guard. "Do you not fear death?" Marcus grinned. "We fear it, sure, but we don't let it stop us." Her eyes glimmered. "Then perhaps I have underestimated humans." They reached the Regent's chamber. The massive doors opened to reveal the Regent himself, tall and imposing, adorned in black armor with symbols of power. His eyes narrowed as he saw Solara standing beside Marcus. "So," he said coldly, "you have survived and brought humans with you. Pathetic creatures. You cannot hope to stop me." Solara stepped forward. "You taught me fear and control, but you forgot one thing. I am not yours to command, and neither are they." Marcus readied his rifle, but Solara raised a hand. "No, this is my fight. You will not use them as weapons." The Regent laughed. Bold words from a child. Child. Solara's voice was steel. "I am a princess, I am a warrior, and I am free." The battle was fierce. The Regent wielded power with precision, striking at Solara with weapons that seemed unstoppable. But she was quicker, her training and instincts guiding every move. Marcus and the human team held the chamber's perimeter, neutralizing threats and giving her space to act. Solara moved like a storm, her strikes breaking through the Regent's defenses. For every attack he launched, she countered with skill and creativity that surprised even him. Humanity's teachings, the boldness, the unpredictability, the courage to act against all odds, had shaped her strategy in ways he could not anticipate. "You are reckless," he shouted, striking at her again. "Yes," she replied, eyes blazing, "and that is why you will fail." With a final, precise maneuver, Solara disarmed the Regent, sending his weapon clattering across the floor. He staggered, stunned by her speed and determination. Marcus stepped forward. "It's over, the Regent's expression twisted with rage, but there was no energy left to resist. Solara stood tall, breathing evenly, silver hair flowing, eyes shining with triumph. Outside, the Dominion fleet watched their flagship falter. Confused and leaderless, the remaining ships scattered into the darkness, their morale shattered. The humans had achieved the impossible. They had fought not just with technology, but with courage, loyalty, and unpredictable spirit, the very qualities that had defined their species. Solara turned to Marcus. "Your people, they are extraordinary. They risk everything for one another. For me. For ideals. They are not just weak creatures as my world believed. They are remarkable." Marcus smiled faintly. "And you, Princess, are not just a ruler. You're a warrior. You made them see that too." She laughed softly. "Perhaps we have taught each other much, Marcus Hale, about courage, about choice, about freedom." Back on the Ardent Dawn, the crew celebrated quietly. The battle had cost them energy, hull integrity, and some near misses, but they were alive. More importantly, they had proven to themselves, and to the galaxy, that humans could hold their own against the most powerful forces. Solara addressed the crew. "I have seen loyalty, courage, and defiance among you that surpasses anything in my empire. I will ensure that your deeds are remembered in Auravean history, not as pawns, but as equals." The crew exchanged amazed glances. For humans, recognition from an alien empire, especially one so feared, was beyond their wildest dreams. Marcus stood beside Solara at the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "Do you think it's over?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, but we have changed the game. The galaxy will remember this day." He nodded, a sense of pride swelling in him. Humanity had survived, thrived, and protected the princess. Not for empire, not for glory, but because they chose to act, because they chose loyalty, courage, and compassion. Solara removed her helmet again, placing it gently on the console. Her silver hair framed her glowing face. She looked at Marcus, and for the first time her eyes softened with genuine warmth. "You called me gorgeous the first time we met," she said softly. "And you were right. But now, I see that your courage, your humanity, is even more beautiful." Marcus smiled, feeling a rare lightness amidst the aftermath of battle. "I meant every word." The stars outside twinkled silently, witnessing the birth of a new bond, not just between human and alien, but between civilizations. What had begun as a chance encounter in the void had grown into a story that would echo across galaxies. Solara turned her gaze to the distant stars, thoughtful. "A bridge has been built. Between humans and Auravion there is hope. Between worlds there can be understanding. And perhaps even friendship." Marcus stood beside her, silent for a moment, then nodded. "Hope and friendship. Sounds like a good legacy." Solara smiled fully now, regal yet human, warrior yet compassionate. "Indeed. And it begins with choices, courage, and hearts that refuse to bend." The ardent dawn sailed forward, carrying humans who had proven that spirit could triumph over power, and an alien princess who had discovered that loyalty and bravery were not bound by species. Together they had changed the course of destiny, not through domination but through trust, courage, and the unpredictable strength of humanity. And somewhere in the galaxy whispers spread that when an alien princess removed her helmet and a human whispered gorgeous, a new legend was born, a legend of courage, hope, and the extraordinary power of humans.